Some shows don't need a celebrity narrator to introduce the show, but this show does. In a world filled with endless opportunities, why would two men who have built 13 multi-million-dollar businesses altruistically invest 5 hours per day to teach you the best practice business systems and moves that you can use? Because they believe in you, and they have a lot of time on their hands. They started from the bottom, now they're here. It's the Thrivetime show starring the former U.S. Small Business Administration's Entrepreneur of the Year, Clay Clark, and the entrepreneur trapped inside an optometrist's body, Dr. Robert Zillner. 2 men, 8 kids, co-created by 2 different women, 13 multi-million-dollar businesses.
We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here.
Started from the bottom, and now we're at the top, teaching you the systems to get what we got. Colton Dixon's on the hooks, I break down the books. The seeds bringing some wisdom and the good looks. As the father of 5, that's why I'm alive. So if you see my wife and kids, please tell them hi. It's the CNC up on your radio, and now 3, 2, 1, here we go.
We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, and we'll show you how to get here. Started from the bottom, now we're here. We started from the bottom, now we're here.
Everything on your calendar is really a calendar is really a mirror. It's a reflection of your priorities, and it's a date with yourself. And if you will not trust yourself with those things, then how can you be trusted with other things? So I don't schedule something and then not do it.
You got to schedule what gets scheduled, gets done. That's for your faith, right? Your family, your finances, your fitness, your friendship, you know. So Saturday night when we wrap up this wonderful event, we'll be driving from Anaheim to Tulsa. For anybody who wants to make that trip, it's about 21 consecutive hours of just awesome. The state of New Mexico really goes by fast if you're not looking out the window and thinking about why it looks like a dystopian Mad Max movie. But New Mexico is an interesting, New Mexico might need a kind of a redo. But so driving through New Mexico. So it's 21 hours, but I told my wife and kids, hey, let's do dinner Saturday night at 6. You know, and so we're going to do dinner Saturday night at 6, which means we have to leave, you know. Are we on the same page? And that's not more important. Being with my kids isn't more important than being here with you. And being here with you isn't more important than, it's about trade-offs. And it's scheduling time for what matters. We on the same page? Okay, all right. Next item, this is a to-do list, and I printed my actual to-do list. This is on the opposite side of the calendar, my to-do list. And the to-do list, that is challenging. Does anyone here write songs? That is challenging because I'm a songwriter. Some of you write songs. When you get a song idea, one, people think you're a bizarre creature when you're singing melodies into your phone by yourself in a crowded room. They're like, he's lost his mind again. But that's how a song, it comes from like a melody or a lyric or an idea, and then you have to block out time to work on it, and it takes a lot of iterations. Does anybody here carve something or make something with your hands? You make a product or you make something with wood, or anybody here make something? It requires iteration. Anybody here paint? Painters? You got to work on it. So you got to block out time for those kinds of things. And the problem is that money is just a vehicle to get you where you want to go, right? Right? So Sean, look it up, pull it up on the screen here. But the Bible says for the love of money, right? The love of money is the root of all evil. We'll break it down in just a moment. So what happens is some people think that money is the goal and money's not a vehicle. They get that confused. Money is not the destination. It's just a vehicle. And Dave, if you wanted to spend every His Glory episode entirely focused on making money, how would that change dramatically what you do?
It would completely dry up because that's not what we're for, and that's not what the Lord wants us to do. It's like a river that keeps flowing. It comes in to be able to get to 1 billion souls. Every dollar in is to get another soul. That's what it's all about.
But if you spent 0% of your day thinking about how you're going to pay for the production team and the videographers and the camera team and the designers and all the wonderful folks, if you spent 0% of your time thinking about how you're going to pay the actual people that work for you with the real bills you really have, what would happen?
We'd be in deep trouble. So there's got to be an inspection process. My inspection process is usually earlier in the morning, and later at night, I'll go through our social media, check our production, just to see something that steps out. And every one of our broadcasts, we pre-tape them, so I can see everything is going on, and we make corrections real time before it gets out.
And I'm not saying this, I'm not trying to I'm not trying to give you fake examples that are to impress you, nor am I trying to depress you by sharing with you the harsh reality of entrepreneurship. But I know for me, I go to bed at 9, so I go to bed at 9, it's like 8:58, I'm going, I can see, sleep. So, I mean, I'm looking at my eyelids at 8:59, I'm out, okay? And then I'm waking up at 3, because nobody's up at 3. You know, so no employees are calling in sick. We've got close to 90 employees. None of them are calling in sick. There's no issues. There's no political drama. Nobody's upset before about 6. Now, once the people wake up, now we have problems, okay? So I like to go to bed at 9 and wake up at 3, 9 and 3. That's my thing. And then I like to be done working at 6. That's my schedule, from 3 to 6 every day. 3 to 6, 3 to 6, 3 to 6. 6 days a week works for me. Take off the 7th. I'm not saying that's the routine you should have. I'm just saying that's my schedule. So I'm asking you right now, with your to-do list, you got to schedule a time every day to make your to-do list. And it should take about an hour to think about, okay, how was yesterday and how do I want today to go? And you have to do it every day, because if you don't design your day, chaos will happen by default. So, Andrew, what would happen if you did not design your days?
I would forget something that's important and very important. I start off by having calendar items. Every one of those items get done every day, but the task list or the to-do list, that's so long, I can't get through it all in one day. I end up having to carry over, but I make sure that I prioritize and get the ones that absolutely have to be done, completed before the day's end.
Now, Randy Antrican, I want to ask you this real quick here. Final question I have, and then we'll take a quick break before we introduce our next speaker here. Randy, what would happen if you did not have a calendar and a to-do list? Like, what would happen? What would happen to your day if you didn't get up every day, make the calendar, make the to-do list? What would happen?
Well, I don't think you can have one and not the other. You have to have both, because like my to-do list has 200 things on it, but if you don't have a calendar and schedule your priorities, what you're gonna do is default to the easiest thing on the list, and it's usually the items that don't move the needle, like buy something from Amazon, or, I mean, just something easy will take its place. And I utilize my calendar to knock out all my hard stuff first, and I schedule my meetings around that. And that's how I get more done.
Now, folks, we're going to be introducing our next presenter in about 90 seconds. But this is what's going to happen is we'll have our next presenter, and then what we're going to do is we're going to do all the questions on the whiteboard, and then we're going to break for a late lunch. Does that make sense? So we'll have the speaker come up next, and then we're going to do Q&A, and then we'll take a late lunch. So feel free to find your seats. Everybody who's in the coffee shop, make your way to a seat here. Sean, play a little segue music. We'll come back here in 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it very much. That's Dave Scarlett with his glory. Let's hear it for him. Dave Scarlett. All right, that's Randy Antrican with PMH OKC. And that's Andrew Sorcini with bh-pm.com. Through the Reawaken America Tour, how many of you remember where you were when the lockdowns happened? You remember that? All right. You remember that, the lockdowns? Okay. And all I remember was I was praying for General Flynn relentlessly pre-lockdown. I was praying for him, and I was praying for President Donald J. Trump to become our 45th president of these United States. And not because I thought President Trump was perfect, but I thought he's a business guy, and in a way, our country is kind of a big business, and it would make sense to me to have somebody who knows how to run a company, how to run an organization. And then when the lockdowns happened, General Flynn and I started this thing called the Reawaken Tour. I thought it would be one event. Somehow it turned into 25 consecutive money-losing events, devouring 4 years of time. And through the tour, we met some of the best people, and we met some of the worst people. And oftentimes at the same event, we met Antifa in Oregon, and we also got a chance to be backstage meeting great people such as Kash Patel, Eric Trump, Laura Trump, Don Jr. It was an absolute wonderful way to meet the best and the worst. And I think many of us figured out that Donald J. Trump best represents our core American values, and it was a candidate that we wanted to see back in office to be our 47th president of these United States. So before I introduce our next presenter, I have a video that I think correctly sort of encapsulates what Donald J. Trump, as president of these United States, has meant for our country and what he means for our country moving forward. And so, Sean, hit it.
What truly matters is not which party controls our government, but whether our government is controlled by the people. For too long, a small group in our nation's capital has reaped the rewards of government while the people have borne the cost. The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. That all changes starting right here and right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand to your feet and greet my good friend and now yours, Eric Trump! One more time, Anaheim, let's hear it for Eric Trump! He's taller than you think, folks. How are you, sir?
California, it's so good to be here, guys. It's so nice to have conservatives in California. There's a lot more of us than we think, so.
Now, folks, you guys can grab a seat. What we're going to do is we're going to do a Q&A format. And for those of you that don't know, Eric Trump probably woke up before most of us today. And that's how I think Eric and I first connected, was to-do lists and calendars and managing people. So I'll start with this, Eric. How big is the Trump Organization, and what exactly do you do at the Trump Organization?
Well, by the way, I woke up early this morning because I'm on Eastern time, so I was in the gym at, I think, 5:15 this morning. But listen, the Trump Organization has become so many things over the years. We are the greatest hospitality company, I believe, in the world. We started as kind of a cool story. My great-grandfather started in hospitality. When you had the gold rush, he went up to Canada and up to Alaska. He wanted to beat all the guys in the gold rush, saying, hey, I know everybody's going to be panning for gold, but I want to get up there and I want to offer the hospitality to them. I want to do the hotel rooms. I want to do the bar. I want to do the pub. You know, and so he got up there ahead of everybody in the gold rush and kind of started the hospitality, actually in Whitehorse of all places. And then he went over to Alaska and a couple other places. And my grandfather decided to get into residential real estate. And it's when kind of the Model T was coming out. Henry Ford came out with a car. And he started building single garages attached to people's homes. The concept of a garage didn't exist until then, until really Model T. And so he realized, hey, I'm a really good builder. I'm gonna, build garages. And he became better and better, and he started building walk-ups, and he ended up getting about 26,000 units in Brooklyn and Queens and in New York. And then my father came along, and he goes, I no longer want to do the walk-ups. I want to build the greatest buildings anywhere in the city. I want to control New York City, and I want to do it in Atlantic City. I want to get into gaming. And so, when my grandfather believed in kind of bricks and mortar and efficiency, perfect layout, low ceilings, small bathrooms, but just efficient buildings, my father did the exact opposite. He wanted the tallest ceiling heights. He wanted the 6-fixture bathrooms. He wanted the 2 bidets in the bathroom and the double sinks and the makeup vanities and, again, the high ceiling heights and the big bedrooms and, floor-to-ceiling glass, all imported from Germany, the best glass and everything else, these, fancy curtain wall systems. And then we kind of came into the business, and that's really when we started getting going in golf. We realized we're really good in hospitality. So we wanted to take residential real estate, and we wanted to expand it to hotels, to golf properties, and we wanted to take it internationally. And so that's kind of the 4th generation of real estate. And so now we have properties pretty much on every continent. We have about 26 jobs. I have about 26 jobs around the world right now. We have 7 in the Middle East. We have 9 in India. We're 2 projects in Vietnam, a bunch in Europe that we're building, projects all over the U.S. and some of the greatest hotels, some of the greatest golf properties, retail, commercial buildings, and that's what I do every single day. And more recently, very big into crypto, as you guys have probably heard me talk about. So that all came out of politics and getting debanked. And we fell in love with digital assets, right? To try to take out the big banks because the big banks tried to take us out. And so, love Bitcoin. Have a great company called American Bitcoin that I work on every single day, and having a lot of fun, guys.
Now, so it could be said that your grandfather invented the Garage Mahal.
I like that name, Garage Mahal.
The Garage Mahal, it could be said. Now, your father, it could be said, is the inventor of the weave. Now, the weave. Now, some of you have businesses and you want to grow them, and we have to learn how to communicate and manage people, right? To build an organization, you have to be organized and you have to manage people. You are a phenomenal communicator, and I know this because the first time I met you at one of your properties, he knew the waitress's name, she knew his name. The valet team member knew his name, he knew his name. Everybody knows him, he knows everybody, and there was a rapport there. And I'm like, although you are the boss, there's a rapport. Could you talk about communication, the importance of it, and maybe if you could weave in the weave?
Oh, God. Well, the weave. So my father invented the weave, right? So it's, you start off on a subject and you go completely off course, and then you circle back. And by the way, it takes great brilliance to do. You circle back, and everything has to flow perfectly through this train of thought, right? And he's done a great job. And I think, frankly, it's why he won all the debates, right? He was always able to weave.
He did a great job to weave.
But as a company, guys, it's funny you say that. We are a massive company. We've got tens of thousands of employees around the world. But at the end of the day, we run like the biggest mom and pop. If you lose touch with your people, congratulations, you're out of business. I never wanted to be a Marriott. No disrespect, great company. I never wanted to be a Hilton. I want to know the general manager. I want to know the controller. I want to know the people at the front desk. I want to know every single one of our employees. And if you walk into any one of our properties anywhere around the world, I challenge you to ask anybody that you see whether or not they know me or feel like they really, really know me, right? And I look down at the screen right here. I can tell you every single manager at every single property there. In fact, I just left the one that has golf on it. That's Trump LA right here. I'm sure many of you have been there before. But people in our company aren't numbers. They're not numbers. They're human beings. I know their pets. I know their kids. I know their husbands. I know their wives. We've been there for them when their houses have burned down, and I've given the speeches at their wedding. I've married more employees than you can possibly imagine, and I've been at their funerals, unfortunately, and I've given those eulogies, and I've also been there, at their kids, bar mitzvahs and their christenings. We are people that are incredibly kind of accessible, and it's a company of love. These are family members to us. That's how we treat them. And it's why I always say, if you're in the Trump organization for a year, you're with us for life. I mean, the average employee, 20, 30 years, they never leave, and it's because we treat them like family. They are family. We're the first people to laugh. We work really, really hard, and we're really serious about what we do. At the same time, we have the greatest time, and we're happy to be inappropriate, but we're happy to have a good time, and that's what life's all about. And so we've really created a great community. And every single day I hear some BS company, oh, yes, we've got wonderful corporate culture. And then I'll go up to somebody, how long have you been with the company? Oh, I joined 3 months ago. I go, clearly your corporate culture isn't that great because, every person I've met has been at this company for sub a year. We really believe in tenure. We believe in incredible people. We believe in treating them great, compensating them well, having an unbelievable work environment, and not putting up with kind of the HR nonsense that you see in so many other companies. We never had the DEI nonsense, and we never had so many of the jokes that kind of went through corporate America. And I can tell you, our teams are so thankful for that.
Now, Eric, for our anniversary, for my wife and I, for our anniversary, Eric sent my wife and I to Scotland. So we went to Turnberry and we stayed there, and it was an unbelievable experience. And what I found is that the people in Scotland, yet again, they know your name, you know who they are. There was a guy named Jim at the Turnberry, and it was like he was your best friend, but there is a large team of people working there. And they were all bragging about how you completely stripped that thing down to the, basically you took the property, this beautiful property, and you totally renovated this thing, made it world class. And you have this high expectation, but yet it doesn't seem like there's an organization filled with confrontation. And I think that's hard for some people when they're running a company. It's how do you get a guy like Jim in Scotland to put on, I mean, I'm not kidding, it was a 20-minute infomercial for you. He was bragging on you and the work you did, and he said you should have seen it before the Trumps bought it. You should have seen the renovation. And he's so excited about the energy and the culture, but yet there doesn't seem like your day is filled with endless confrontation. How do you set a high expectation? How do you do it?
In fact, zero confrontation. So Jim is kind of like attaché slash a doorman at Turnberry. He wears a kilt, thick Scottish accent. Everybody knows him, everybody loves him, but you know, Jim is a guy who had been lied to for 20 years. He's been at that property for a very long time. This is, you know, Turnberry in Scotland. Let's see, keep going down. You're actually on the hotels. It's probably not going to appear on here. You need to go to the hotel page. Keep going down. It might be at the bottom. But anyway,
I'll find it for you, Eric. Keep going. I'll find it for you.
Yeah. Find Turnberry. It's a spectacular hotel. But Jim had been lied to. So the company that owned Turnberry before we came in, actually two before, was a Japanese company. And guess what? They never went to Turnberry. They invested in Turnberry, and they never went. They sent one of their kind of minions over there. He didn't care about it. You know, he'd show up once every 2 years. He'd walk around, have a fancy meal, and then leave. And then the next company that came in and bought it was Leisure Corp. Leisure Corp was based in the Middle East. And again, they couldn't tell the difference between a sand trap and a bunker. They didn't give a damn about the hotel. They didn't give a damn about their employees. In fact, the general manager used to joke that I was at the hotel more times before we bought it, in kind of the due diligence period, than the owners had been at the property in the last 15 years, right? And so Jim was a guy who was lied to over and over and over. They were promised things, right? And none of it ever came through. It was just, and then all of a sudden I show up, right? And I say, we're gonna turn this into the greatest hotel in Scotland. And we turned it into the greatest hotel in Scotland. We're gonna replace every window. We're gonna redo every single room. We're gonna bring this property back to its original grandeur. And then guess what? Windows start coming out of a building, you know, a sheetrock gets stripped off of the walls, every door fixture, every door, right? And walking through that hotel with impeccable standards. And then you know what they start seeing? They start seeing rates go up. And as rates go up, tips start going up, right? And as rates start going up and as tips going up and as your hospitality gets better and better, you know, occupancy in that hotel starts going up. And all of a sudden their life starts becoming better. And the hotel does better and better and better, which means they're getting paid more. They're getting paid more not only in terms of salary, but in terms of tips. And then every time I walk into that hotel, you know, I know Jim, and I know Jim's family, and we laugh about something, right? And all of a sudden there's a bond, and I never let the guy down. We never let him down. He became a member of our family, but everything that we said that we were going to do, we did. When everybody else had lied to Jim over the years about the great plans that they were gonna have, and then they stopped showing up. And so for us guys, it was always about showing up. I mean, I can tell you every single mechanical room in that building. I can tell you every spot in every attic, in every basement. I can give you every bunker on that golf course, right? I designed them, I built them. And people see that passion, and you can't fake passion in life. You either have passion or you don't. And if you don't love what you do, get the hell out of that industry. Go find something you love, because you can't fake it. But these are assets that you can't show up at
Put it on the
once every
screen.
12 years. And you know, and that's the problem that you have with the Hiltons. That's the problems you have with the Marriotts. You know, if you're the CEO of Marriott, what do? You know, you can't get to 34,000 hotels. You can't know 34,000 general managers and 34,000 controllers. You lose touch. And that's why as a hospitality company, I never wanted to be one of them. I want to focus on the greatest projects anywhere in the world, and I wanted to focus on our teams and our people. And that's why I think we do the hotel world better than anybody. And I think Clay will attest. He stayed in that lighthouse right there. Good. Zoom up a little bit. I put Clay and his wife in that lighthouse, and would you say that's rather beautiful?
Well, I'll tell you, my wife was blown away, and it was a great way to spend the anniversary. You know, the Reawaken Tour was like a money-losing machine, and so we found a way to lose money, lawsuits, the whole thing. And when Eric said, hey, for your anniversary, you guys should go to Turnberry. Well, first off, I don't really know what that means, you know? I don't know where Turnberry is. I don't know. I know they talk that way. So I was practicing my Scottish, you know, accent. So I wanted to say, hello, Jim. Good to see you, you know? And so I'm looking it up. My wife's like, we're going to stay in that lighthouse. And that's the famous burial grounds of the guy who liberated Scotland. He was buried.
King Robert the Bruce, who has anybody
We're
seen?
all with the Bruce.
Has anybody seen Braveheart? All right, right there. So right where that lighthouse is, see, that mounding in front of the lighthouse was actually the castle walls for King Robert the Bruce. And so obviously that lighthouse was there. You know what's really cool about that lighthouse? I'm not sure if I ever told you this. Robert Louis Stevenson was the biggest lighthouse designer in the UK, right, in the world at the time. Robert Louis Stevenson Jr. was the author that wrote Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Pirates of the Caribbean, everything, and he wrote a lot of the literary works, his literary works, in that lighthouse that Clay Clark was staying in. But it's a super, super cool project. But you know, we are very, very connected with our projects, and you know, so oftentimes, you know, I feel bad saying this, and not to disparage them at all. They're amazing, you know, great people, great careers. But so often times people think like, you know, I'm Paris Hilton as it pertains to our hotel company, right? I'm the exact opposite. I can tell you every single mechanical room, every light fixture, every person, every room. I design those rooms. We're so hands-on in our business, and it's critical if you want to be good at what you do.
Now, again, I want to make sure I have a big old list of things I want to get into, because I'm trying to answer the questions that oftentimes get on the whiteboard. I'm trying to have Eric answer those because it's such universal principles I've seen you live. This next thing is energy.
Yeah.
Energy. This property, again, Turnberry, folks, you got to look it up. It's incredible. The energy there is next level. You go to Trump Doral, the energy is next level. As an example, something happened where my wife somehow got locked out of our room at Doral. I think we locked ourselves out, or the door didn't work, or something happened. And the property manager, I think Mikkel, he found out there was a problem and then brought one of those genies over that's the lift. And he brought the genie lift and somehow got into the room and left us with like chocolate golf balls and a decorative pear and a thank you note and all this. And it was fast and it was energy. And it was like you could feel the energy. And I just want to get your thoughts on that. The energy, how important is it for everybody here to bring great energy?
Well, where do you think the energy came from? Certainly didn't come from sleepy Joe Biden, right? Or Jeb Bush. I don't know, guys. It's like you either have energy or you don't, right? You either absolutely freaking love what you do or you don't. You either work 7 days a week or you don't, right? Like the one thing we've never lacked in our genetics was energy. We've always gone 7 days a week. We've always gone 24 hours a day in absolutely everything we do. We've never been a big sleep family. And I think a lot of that comes out of, listen, I think a little bit of that's genetics. And then I think a lot of that's also passion, right? If you hate something, you're not going to be energized about it. You're not going to love it. By the way, there's certain things that I don't love, right? I'm in real estate, and I love building. I love concrete. I love putting up those ballrooms. I built every inch of that building. That's Doral right there in Miami. And I love construction. Do I love commercial leasing? No, it's pretty monotonous, right? It's kind of the same form contract every single time. It's kind of plug and play in terms of terms. You know, it's not the most dynamic thing. It's not the most exciting. Now, there are people who absolutely love commercial leasing. Like that's what does it for them. And they wake up every single morning, they want to get a lease executed, and that's their goal. You know, I think you're better at things that you're really, really into, that you're really, really passionate about. And so I think in everybody's respective career, it's like gravitate toward the things that you're passionate about. And if you're a manager or if you're an executive of a company, you know, fill those spots that you need to fill. Not everything's going to be passionate to you, but fill them with people who absolutely adore whatever that skill set is, and you're going to have a great team around you. And we've always done that. And the one thing that Clay will tell you about the company, and I think you've seen this kind of time and time again, we're not the company that goes out and hires Ivy League people. It's just, we don't do it. We always hire from within, and we take a great person, and we build up that person, we build up their confidence, and you see a talent in that person, and you give them an opportunity, and they will succeed every single time. Versus going and trying to find that Ivy League educated person. Listen, I went to one of the best schools in the country. This is almost knocking me. But they fail the vast majority of the time. We've really been good at going in and finding somebody who worked hard, that was street smart, that you know, commanded respect, that you know, a team loved. Yeah, and elevated them. We have a building in Las Vegas. You can bring it up on the screen. We have a general manager named Brian Boudreau. Brian used to literally be a driver for us when we were kids. Right, my father, for us. And Brian, I don't think he graduated high school, right? He definitely didn't go to college. And one day we were building a building, Trump Las Vegas. It's the tallest building on the Strip. It's 1,282 rooms in Las Vegas. We needed somebody to bring the architects out to the project. We bought the piece of land, and Brian goes, I'll bring them out. So Brian takes a trip out to Las Vegas, shows them the piece of land, you know, gets them engaged. You know, a couple weeks later, we need to go get, you know, a construction company. And so guess what? Brian raises his hand. I'll bring them out. He didn't know anything about construction. He never worked in construction. Sure enough, he's touring construction guys, right? All of a sudden, bankers need to go out there because we were getting financing for the building. I'll bring the bankers out. Sure enough, Brian ended up running construction on that building, brought the building in ahead of schedule, under budget. This was a guy who was a driver in our company, right? And I'll never forget, we hired a guy from the Four Seasons. Not to disparage Four Seasons, a great company. And the guy, he was 6 months in, and it's like, this isn't working. The guy's walking around with the pockets square. It's just, he wasn't our type of person. And we knew we had to get rid of him. We knew we had to make a change. And so guess who had his hand up? Brian. He goes, listen, I know nothing about hospitality. I know nothing about running a hotel, but I'll figure it out. And Brian's running, I opened that building in March of 2008, and Brian is still the general manager today. It's the tallest building on the Las Vegas Strip. And the lesson to all of this is always have your hand up. Always have your hand up. And honestly, give the opportunity to the people who deserve it, you know, not to some resume. And honestly, it's even worse today than ever. This is the bop and weave. Because of AI, right? You can have the least qualified person in the entire world make themselves sound like Albert Einstein based on AI. It's all BS, right? It means nothing. Always pick the person who's proven themselves time and time again. And by the way, they'll never forget that you gave them that opportunity because no one else in the world would have given them that opportunity. And it's been one of the greatest keys to our success as a company.
Now, I want to pull this up just to let you know what Eric is saying is grounded not only in his experience, but there's just a lot of hard facts here. Sean, pull it up. According to Inc. magazine, 85% of candidates pre-AI made up their resumes. Pull it up real quick. According to Inc. magazine, 85% of candidates were just making things up on their resume before AI. I'm having people now come to their interviews with their AI assistant in their ear, and they're trying to being coached what to say. I'm not making it up. Resumes are bogus, so there's epic amounts of jackassery swirling around in the hiring systems of America. We'll walk you through more of that. But as far as for just kind of pacing ourselves and so you know what we're going to get into here, I wanted to ask Eric about business. And I also want to ask Eric about family. And I also want to ask Eric about being under siege. And I'll bring up Pastor Phil to talk about that in a moment as well. But business, we talked about that. Let's get into family. You know, your dad is the president of the United States. Your mom, you know, I had a chance to work with you on your book and editing that thing and reading it. And your mom sounded like the real disciplinarian. What was it like in the Trump house, age 12, 13? Was it competitive? What was happening in the Trump house, age 12?
Oh, my mom was an absolute killer. She was an absolute killer. I mean, my father didn't need to be the killer when it came to us because she was from communist Czechoslovakia. And honestly, she loved big nails, right? She's a really elegant woman, but a phenomenal athlete, like almost Olympic quality skier, skied for the Czech national team, tough as hell. And if I got this much out of line, if Don got this much out of line, you had these big fake nails in your neck. And my mom had this weird thing. Does anybody have like parents that wore their ring, or does anybody in here ever wear like their wedding ring inverted? Females? Do you ever do that? For some reason, she'd always wear her ring inverted. If she was just like casually. And so what she'd do, she'd grab you. You didn't eat the food that was on your table. You didn't say please. You didn't say thank you. You didn't open doors. You'd get these 2 nails in the neck, and then she would bop you. But when she bopped you this way, you just get cut on one side with a ring. And then when she bopped you the opposite way, it was just like bruised on this side of the face, right? And she was a killer. And by the way, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to us. I'm not condoning it wasn't child abuse, but sometimes it felt at that age like it was close. She was cool as hell. I mean, she was just a tough cookie, and love her very much. But no, she was a big part of who we are. She was a big part of the work ethic, and my father was always greatest father of the world. He started the day every single day, no drinking, no drugs, no smoking, and you better get good grades. And in the early 90s, there was one other aspect of that, which was never trust anybody. I look back, I'm like, man, that was pretty dark. Like, that was pretty dark advice to give a 7-year-old, but first of all, I was sitting there saying, like, Dad, what's drinking? You're thinking of like drinking as in like apple juice, right? No drinking, no drugs, no smoking. You better get good grades and never trust anybody. I mean, this is when every bank was trying to, take him down and, trying to put him out of business and everything else, and he beat all of them. But, as we started living through this political journey, and certainly the journey I write about in Under Siege, I sit there and say, man, that was pretty good wisdom. I didn't understand it at the time, but I think looking back, now I understand exactly what he meant. But phenomenal father, a guy who put us to work at a very young age. We were on construction sites when we were 11, doing conduit, doing masonry, plumbing, HVAC, electrical. It's something that I love. It's something that, I'm still incredibly handy with my hands. But he just didn't believe in putting a kid in an ivory tower office, to kind of direct contractors to build buildings, not knowing a damn thing about building themselves. And And so we were on those construction sites. We had sledgehammers in our hands. We were taking down walls, and that was expected. And it really did a couple things for us. It's, first of all, at the end of the day, you were so damn tired. You weren't going to go, you weren't going to go out to bars. You weren't going to indulge in terrible hobbies and practices and other things. Second of all, you developed an understanding and appreciation for the value of money. Right? So, if you're making $4 an hour, I mean, we were making minimum wage. Don't think we were making $30 an hour. We were making literally, $3-4 an hour. You're not going to spend that $3-4 an hour, buying a handle of vodka because you actually have appreciation. Third of all, it gave you great appreciation for the contractors and the people who actually build things and make things and bring things to life and how hard those jobs are. And then fourth, it teaches you a skill set. And so he never wanted us to have idle time. And I hope to God, kids are the hardest thing in the world, but I hope to God we can emulate that model because it was the best thing that ever happened to us.
Now, Eric, I want to ask you about this. This is something. We were at the Reawaken tour in Missouri, Branson, Missouri. And we were there, and how many of you know that David was a man after God's own heart? And not perfect, but but David was a man after God's own heart. And when I look for with people, just so you know, if I'm hiring people or meeting people, I try to size people up and figure out what they're all about. And we'd done enough events together, and I knew that if Eric said he was going to come to an event, he would come to it. No matter what the threats were, Antifa getting crazy, the death threats, all that, Eric would be there. There was a funeral that Eric had to get to, so he drove to one of our events. So Eric was always there. So I knew his yes was his yes and his no was his no. But in Missouri, he got me. That's where he got me. So Eric had wrapped up his speech, and no one was watching, but there was some young kids, and Eric was shaking hands, and the security people were like, "Okay, you got to go, sir." And Eric was like, "Well, let me shake this kid's hand," and then this kid's hand, and then another kid, and he kept doing that, and I'm like, okay. No one knows he's doing this, but Eric's holding up the line because he's shaking all the hands. You probably shook thousands of hands at that Missouri. I mean, seriously, it was thousands of hands in Branson, Missouri. And I watched Eric do that, and I've noticed that the way your father raised you, I know because of security, you have to be up here and we have to be down here and this whole thing, but you resonate, you connect with mainstream people. And I can't celebrate that enough, because I've done so much these political events where there are certain people that think they should be behind a velvet rope and they shouldn't. And there's a lot of people that, think that they're too good for the average contractor, the average stonemason, the average auto mechanic. And that's why I love having you come to our events, because you have an appreciation. Could you talk about that? You're raised around Michael Jackson, Mike Tyson, hanging out at your dad's property. You're at casinos, helicopters, but yet you still relate to the average person. You're still shaking hands with the average kid in Missouri. Can you just walk us through how you process this life where your household name, but you also are Main Street? How do you do it?
By the way, Clay's almost killed us a couple times. Just as to the beginning of Clay's story, he's talking about Antifa. So we go do a speech in Oregon, and I'll get back to the actual question. And by the way, you've never seen a crowd like this. I'm telling you, no one in Oregon has seen a conservative in like 87 years. And so every person who was right of center in Oregon showed up to this event. And Clay calls me the day before. He's like, all the speakers are bailing. I go, why are they bailing? He's like, because Antifa wants to literally like raid us, while we're in this tent. And I go, Clay, I'm coming. I told you I was coming. I'm coming. And they're finding these like little stars under people's tires, the ones that deflate the tires and everything else. And I mean, it's absolutely crazy out there. This was in like the summer of love, right? I.e. the riots, the mostly peaceful, as we call it, CNN riots. Remember the mostly peaceful riot where the cars and the buildings are on fire is right behind. And I'll never forget. We gave the speech. There was like 3,000 people. We had the greatest reception. And I had like an hour and a half before my flight, and there was a German place. It was like a weird place across the street, and they had the best schnitzel. And so we go in there, and I'm eating schnitzel, and there was a guy who was with us that Clay used to hire for security. He's like, "Sir, we need to get out of here. Antifa's literally they're going to march on this restaurant because they know you're here." I go, "I'm not leaving my schnitzel. I'm finishing my freaking schnitzel. Like I'm not leaving my schnitzel. Like I don't care if it's Antifa. I don't care if we all have to fight our way out of this place. Like I'll try and take 2 of the guys out. You try and take a couple of the guys out, but like we're finishing our schnitzel." But no, listen, if we as a family say we're going to do something, we do it, and Clay has seen that kind of firsthand. But in terms of relating to I always saw my father as interesting. He never cared what the CEO of an electrical company thought. What he would do is he'd go up to the guy who was installing an outlet in a hotel room, and he'd ask him, "Hey man, what do you think? Are we on schedule?" "No, sir, we're not on schedule. We're 3 weeks behind. We don't have enough manpower on this job. We're waiting for supplies. It's a constant disaster." he would always listen to that guy, right? Of course, the CEO of that company is going to tell him, yes, sir, we are on schedule. Everything's wonderful, sir. We're going to have it done for you in time. They're motivated to lie. They're motivated to be dishonest, right? They're motivated to, for their own pocketbooks. He was always one of these guys who would go to the person he would do the same thing on the campaign trail. Forget about the campaign managers. He'd go grab the staffer in Iowa. Hey, how are we doing? What are you seeing out there? Be honest with me. Are we winning this thing? How's our ground game? How's this? And they were always honest with him. It was kind of remarkable. And by the way, so many of the people that were honest with him were actually the people who climbed up the organization and were kind of then the leaders of the company. And, we believed in that. We didn't believe in the socialite thing. We believed in kind of the ordinary man and woman type thing. Like they're the people who are our friends. The vast majority of my best friends are law enforcement. They're contractors. They're just the heart and soul of America, and we're very, very good. So I always call my father the blue collar billionaire, right? I mean, he would rub shoulders with socialite because that was kind of the job, right? But he didn't really want to be with those people. He could act like he did, right? But he didn't really want to be with those people. He wanted to be with the people who were actually able, to create. And so, it's honestly one of the reasons I think he won the presidency of the United States. It's one of the reasons that he kind of won over hearts and minds on The Apprentice. And it was that willingness to commit. And it was also, and I said this, I was with a couple people, I was with Tammy and Phil in a group at their house. And by the way, two of the most amazing people you'll ever meet. And we were talking a little bit about this subject, and he's always been remarkable in terms of that connection. And you'd see it in politics. Like, I think I gave the example of all the phonies during 2016 that would show up at the Iowa State Fair, and they're wearing Carhartts that had never been worn before. Like, the stickers are still on them, and they're wearing a pair of work boots that had never been used before. Like, they're hobbling around because they have blisters because those boots had never been put on before, and they ride up in a Harley Davidson. They don't have their motorcycle license. They've never ridden a Harley before. They barely know what the shift pattern is on a motorcycle. And, they're trying to ride into the Iowa State Fair as if they're, relatable. And what my father does, he puts on a suit, puts on a red tie, flies in his New York helicopter into the middle of the Iowa State Fair and starts giving kids rides around the fair in the helicopter. And he just knew who he was, and he just embraced it. He embraced it. He didn't try and be a phony, while they were all being phonies, every single one of them. And by the way, American can read through a phony. We can all read through phonies. And he was just himself. And he was honest, he was direct. Everybody probably saw that in this press conference yesterday. I'm not sure, did anybody see that press conference yesterday? That was pretty epic. That was I'd call that somewhat direct, to say the least. And, so he was always, that's how he became relatable to, everyday Americans. And I think that's ultimately what won him, the presidency. But I think it's a trait that we all have. We'd much rather deal with that contractor. We'd much rather deal with that electrician than, that socialite that's never created a damn thing in their life, but runs around with a lot of ego and, and that proverbial golden spoon. And so.
Now, I want to talk about growing businesses specifically. That's why we're here, and I want to get into that for a second. One thing that you do really well is you focus on what you can control. I've seen you do that. You're really into to-do lists and calendars and measuring your schedule and taking advantage of really using every day as a day that every day is a gift that God's given you, and then what you do with it is a gift to God. I watch you do that. You manage your time. You're very fastidious. And I think for people who are politically informed, I think a lot of people are here, it's easy to, spend your day going, okay, today what I covered is I got a chance to watch another podcast that exposed the corruption of this and that, and I went down this rabbit trail and that rabbit trail. And then what we need to do is and we're dealing with geopolitical things, and that's important. We get the right to vote, and we need to go vote. But then we need to actually do something with our day and our life on a practical level. And that's why I connected with you so much on the Reawaken tour is you are going, hey, I'm going to be going over to this golf course to manage this, and then I'll come to the event. Hey, I'm going to be looking at the spreadsheets and the P&Ls tomorrow, Clay, and then I'm going to come to your event. Hey, I'm going to be meeting with my staff today. We're expanding, and then I'll come to your event. It was never a situation where you were detaching from running a business while trying to stop geopolitical issues. You had to do both. Can you talk about getting practical for a second for anybody here who's politically informed and you guys were perpetually under siege? How do we get practical? How do you get the most out of every day, Eric? How do you just get practical and tactical?
Well, first of all, we're early risers. I'm up every day at 5 o'clock, normally in the gym by 6. Sometimes earlier than that. I was in the gym at 5:30 this morning. So we've always been early risers. We're not people that sleep in, and we're not people that practically sleep a lot. I mean, if I get 4 hours of sleep a night, 4.5 hours of sleep a night, it's kind of a lot for me, right? I'm kind of like I'd say a 12 to 4:35-ish guy, right? So that's my usual sleep schedule. And there's a lot of people that sleep their lives away, and there's a lot of people that need more sleep to function. And I don't think you win any race sleeping, right? I mean, that seems pretty basic, but if you're lying in bed, there's probably somebody that's passing you in some aspect of life. And I think organization is the most important, the hardest part of anybody's life. There's so many things that come after all of us every single day. There's unexpected family, there's kids, there's relationships, there's husbands and wives, there's school commitments, there's big businesses. I mean, literally, as I'm sitting here, right before I came to the speech today, I was with our team at Trump LA, and we have a couple lawyers that work out here. So I'm talking about 2 lawsuits with them. I'm talking to our superintendent about moving a golf cart path 40 yards over to the right. I'm talking about building new tees, entire bunker renovation. Then we're going back to the lawsuits. I have a team in New York that launched a public company this morning, New American Ventures. We're doing a big SPAC. So they're literally at the New York Stock Exchange ringing the bell as I'm having this conversation. Then I'm coming over here to obviously be with my good friend Clay. And there's just millions of things that come at us every single day. Again, 26 projects under development around the world, our entire existing portfolio, 70, 80, properties, 500 plus entities, probably 1,000 bank accounts, trademarks, everything, lawsuits, everything that you deal with in business. And it's awfully hard, to stay 100% focused on every aspect of the business as much as you need to know all those aspects. And so what I try and do every day is I start with a to-do list. Like I'm a very, very to-do list oriented guy. And I'll give you like a little secret I'm not proud of. Rarely ever do you get through your to-do list. In fact, most of the time, I'd say the average, most of the time my to-do list at the end of the day is substantially longer than what it started out. And a lot of times, if you're having trouble with to-do lists, and it's like mandatory, to-do lists just make you faster and better at everything you do. You write it all down, then you prioritize the things that are most important, and you always take the most important things, you put them at the top, you accomplish them first, and you go down the list to the least important. And if the least important get forgotten about, well, so be it. It is what it is, right? And at least the important goals and milestones got conquered. But if you're ever having trouble with that, do the reverse, to-do list, which is instead of writing a list of all the things you need to do, write a list of all the things that you actually finished and accomplished. And at the end of the day, sometimes you go, wow, I had a big day. I got a lot done. Hey, there might be 100 items over here, but look at all these items that I wrote down, which are things that are 100% accomplished and I never need to think about again. And that's a big thing. So I normally have 2 sides of the to-do list, the actual list, and then oftentimes replicated on the other side, but it's the actual accomplishments of the day. And it's incredibly important is how I live my life.
Now, Phil, I'm going to bring you and Tammy up. Folks, this is Pastor Phil and Tammy Hotzenpiller. They are the host pastors of this place here. This is their church, Influence Church. Let's hear for Phil and Tammy Hotzenpiller. Yeah. Now, I met these guys. By the way, thank you for letting us invade. Thank you. I met these guys because most of the churches shut down. And there was very few that stayed open. And these guys stayed open. That's how we met. And now Tammy, who's an entrepreneur and a pastor, she's helping your wife on her clothing line. And Pastor Phil writes books and preaches and teaches and has an online website called American Faith and many other endeavors. But I wanted to talk to you guys. I want to have a conversation about under siege. So we're going to ask you some questions about being under siege, okay? So Nehemiah in the Bible, right? He had to build a wall while fighting while building a wall. How do you, in your new book, you talk about it, Under Siege, how do you deal with someone saying horrible things about you online, being sued, being really sued, being sued again, being the most subpoenaed man in American history, still being sued. Your father just said something online that's going viral for good things. People are cheering for you when you walk in a restaurant. People are booing. People are cheering. I mean, you fly commercial. You choose to fly on normal airplanes when you come to these events. You fly commercial. How do you get on an airplane knowing that half the crowd hates you, half the crowd likes you, or 70% like you? Just how do you deal with being perpetually under siege?
By the way, more and more, I think about 80% of the crowd absolutely adores you. Does that make sense? And so, You know, it's amazing. America is behind this country like never before. We have more patriotism in America right now than we have had in years. And by the way, you know, in a church, it's so nice to see God back. It's so nice to see family back. You know, and thank God we have it. Guys, we didn't have it. I mean, under Obama, you literally had the IRS going after every conservative organization, every church, trying to pull away the profit, stature of every single, religious organization that was not on their team. Faith was under assault. I mean, guys, how many times have we talked about this on your show? Faith was under assault in ways that we'd never seen before. Family dynamic was under assault. Kids were under assault. The schools were under assault. You had indoctrination. You had revisionist history that was being taught. I mean, I ended up leaving New York. I'll give you, this was like the straw that broke the camel's back. It wasn't just a Letitia James. It wasn't just a legal lawfare. One day I get a text message from the principal of my son's school at the time. This was when my father went to Walter Reed when he had COVID during the first administration. Under no circumstance do you or your wife bring your kids to school tomorrow. Our faculty and parents are petrified of getting COVID from your family. And I'm sitting there saying, my father lives 230 miles away. Unless you can transmit COVID vis-a-vis the telephone. And I just tee off, right? But that was kind of like the last straw I had in New York. And guess who dropped the kid off at school the next day? Like I walked my son right up, and I got so fed up. It's here's the spectrum, here's the line. You have a little girl over here, and you've got a boy over here. I want you, Luke, to check where in the spectrum of sexuality you believe you are. And you're sitting there saying, we're not doing this. We're just, do me a favor, teach my kid how to read, teach him math. He's got plenty of years to be confused, and this nonsense can come later, but it will not happen here. And we finally said, we gotta get the hell out. We gotta get down to Florida. And so we left communism and we went to a very free state. But we were under siege. Listen, I mean, it started the second we went down the escalator. Literally 12 minutes after my father's hand came off the Bible, in 2017, the Washington Post did a story. This is when the impeachment of Donald Trump begins. And I was the guy that got the call from the FBI. All right, Eric, I hear you have secret servers communicating with the Kremlin in the basement at Trump Tower. I go, excuse me? Like, we didn't know what the Iowa caucuses were. We weren't smart enough to communicate with the Kremlin. Like we didn't know what a delegate was. We didn't know a damn thing about politics. And then after that, it was the dirty dossier saying my father, did unthinkable things with females, right? And guess who it was paid for? It was paid for by Hillary Clinton. Go figure. And that was impeachment number 1. And then it was Kavanaugh. And then it was impeachment number 2. And then they raided Mar-a-Lago. And then they banned us from Instagram and Facebook and YouTube and every other channel. They took away your free speech. They literally banned him from all social media. Then it was the gag orders. Then it was the 91 indictments. I got 112 subpoenas. I became the most subpoenaed person in American history, having never done a drug, having never, gotten a traffic ticket in my life, and then they took him off the ballot in Maine, and then they took him off the ballot in Colorado. Then they raided Mar-a-Lago. They went through Melania's room, her closet. They went through Barron's room. Then you had Jack Smith, and you had Letitia James, and you had Comey, and you had Alvin Bragg, and you had all these people that tried to throw him in jail, and then you had the mugshots. I mean, guys, I could go on for hours. I mean, 91 of our corporate employees had their tax returns leaked to the New York Times by the IRS. My father's tax returns, my tax returns, everybody's leaked to the New York Times and other papers vis-a-vis the IRS, right? I mean, they did everything they could. Then you had the sham judge in New York who's been overturned, right? I mean, they wanted to see my father voiceless. They wanted to see my father, bankrupt. They wanted to see the company gone. They tried to take our name off of every single building in Manhattan. They tried to bankrupt our company. They didn't give a damn about our employees. They didn't care about the tens of thousands of people who did not want to be part of this political game. They just wanted to see us voiceless. They wanted to see us muted. They wanted to see us gagged. They wanted to see us destroyed. They wanted to see us off of that stage. It's really interesting. None of this happened until my father decided to run for president again. And that's what the siege was. And then when none of that worked, you know what? They tried to kill him in Butler. And then when that didn't work, guess what? They tried to kill him in Palm Beach at the golf course. And then they shot my good friend Charlie Kirk in the neck. We saw what happened there. A guy who I've been on this very stage with Charlie Kirk about 1,000 times, a dear, dear friend of ours. They wanted to erase the voice. And that was what Under Siege, and that is what Under Siege is about. And honestly, because we had God, God was watching down on this entire process. Make no mistake about it, because we would not be here. We would not be here. But we had God and we had the American people. We certainly didn't have the media. I mean, we had, the coverage of my father and our family was 98% negative. Think about that, 98% negative, and yet, we won the popular vote and we won every swing state. We won 11 counties, by the way, in California that had never been won by a conservative before. We won Miami-Dade, which hadn't been won by a conservative in almost 40 years. We won Miami-Dade by 11 points. And then I get to hear Kamala talk about how it was the closest election in modern history. I go, I don't know, I think Al Gore would probably disagree with that. Al would probably disagree with that, but no, that was under siege, guys, and that's what we had to fight through. And so, how did you do it? I don't know if we had a choice. Honestly, I don't know if we had a choice. It's like, like we either won, and I say this in the book. I'll never forget, my father got convicted in New York. It's all been overturned now, but we're in the car. We're going up the FDR Drive. I was sitting next to him, and he looks over. He goes, I don't know how, but we're going to win this whole thing. And he meant the lawsuit, and he clearly meant the presidency. And I go, yeah, it's either 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue or you and I are both in jail for doing absolutely nothing wrong, because that's the forces to be. And the pendulum was significant, and we didn't have a choice. We either fought or they were going to take us out, as they have so many people in the past, and we weren't going to allow that to happen. And so I think you need to realize life. I think you need to kind of prioritize life as a little bit of a game. And I know that sounds cold, but it's it's a game that sometimes isn't fun to play. It's not a nice game, but it's a game that oftentimes you have to win, right? And if you get caught up too much in the emotion of somebody's actions, it's just part of the game. They're doing this for this reason, and you know exactly what their motivation is behind that. And so you have to play the game, and you have to play the game in order to beat them. Again, it's not nice. It's oftentimes not fun, but it's a game. And if you get caught up, and if you get emotional, and you want to start crying, and you lose backbone, and you lose your kind of desire to fight, well, guess what? Then they win. They're going to run right over you. And so we always kind of compartmentalize all these wars, all these fights, the siege, the weaponization of politics, the dishonesty of the media. We always kind of framed it as just a game. It was another move in a game that we had to overcome. And we fought like hell, and we fought every single day to win that game. And thank God we did, because I'm pretty convinced we wouldn't have a country right now if we didn't.
So, Eric, the first time we met was 2 years ago in July, and we were meeting with Laura at the Trump Tower, and she said, what are you guys doing on the July 4th? It was the 3rd, and I said, well, we're not doing anything. So, well, why don't you come up and enjoy fireworks with the Trumps? So, here's where the story goes. So, we're up there, and I see you both as real parents, and I was so just moved by it. There's Laura, probably frustrated chasing kids, but never showed it. And here's the question. So one of the things you do with your children every night is fill in that blank, pray. Tell us about that.
So we started this young, and by the way, my kids probably were choking me out that night. So I signed my son up for jiu-jitsu, and he's a big boy. He's gonna be big. He's gonna be bigger than me, and so now he loves choking me out. So I guarantee you, during the fireworks, he's trying to choke me out. But no, starting very young, we started a tradition with our kids that actually kind of got passed down to us. We did it there's 3 prayers that we say with our kids every night. We say the Lord's Prayer. I think everybody knows the Lord's Prayer. And then we do, that now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, pray the Lord my soul to keep. And then we do 4 corners. So my kids call it 4 corners, but there are 4 corners on my bed, 4 angels overhead, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. God bless this bed that I lie on. And we started this when our kids were practically 0. And it was amazing. Like it became their kind of proverbial light switch. If once we said prayers, they knew they were down for the night, right? There was no more getting out of bed. There was no more talking. There was no more laughing. The lights were off. It was bedtime, and it became kind of this, this kind of invisible wall, right? It's bedtime, maybe some wrestling, have some fun, prayers, lights are off, you're asleep until the next morning. And what it really did for our kids, aside from bringing spirituality into their life, which is nothing more important, it also really helped their vocabulary. I know that's like a little side effect. The Lord's Prayer isn't easy, and when you have a 1-year-old trying to get through it, it was great for their little voice, it was great for their vocabulary, but it was a great kind of disciplined aspect, of the night that brought faith into the family, and it's something, and I did those same 3 prayers growing up every night before I went to bed, and I remember them. There are times that I can sit here right now and remember exact instances saying those prayers with the people, with my parents, with the people in that room, with me. And so that's something that we tried to carry through with our kids. And, more recently we added, okay, say the Pledge of Allegiance. So they always start with the Pledge of Allegiance. They start with their hand on their hearts. They say the Pledge of Allegiance, and then those 3 prayers. And then kind of as they've developed a little bit of kind of cognition, I always ask them a question at night. It's normally, what's one nice thing that somebody did for you tonight or today? What's the one nice thing that you did for somebody today? What's one thing that you're thankful for? And it's been kind of fun. It makes them think, and it makes them actually have some kind of a recall. Oh, I picked the soda bottle off the floor, or, Dad wrestled with me, or, Dad brought me to the farm and we rode ATVs, and something kind of unique comes out of their heads every time. And what's been really fun is, oftentimes you go over to friends, holiday party, and oftentimes it's, let's say grace, and we often have Luke or Carolina do it, and they just impress people because it gives them this kind of confidence in their voice and to speak from the heart. And it's single-handedly, I think, the best thing we ever did with our kids. But that's how we ended the night, every single night. And regardless of where in the world we are, with very few exception, if I'm not there in person, and I travel a lot, Laura calls me, and we do it on FaceTime, so I'm still the last face that they see before they go to bed. Or if I'm at home, I'll do prayers for them, and I'll call her on FaceTime, and she gets to see them. But, hopefully our kids remember that indefinitely, that virtually every night, the parents were both there, no matter where in the world they were, saying those 3 little prayers. And kind of, I truly hope that in Christianity and faith becomes ingrained in their soul, because we need a lot more of that in this country. So.
I just want to say this. First of all, shameless plug for Under Siege. If you don't have the book, make sure you get it. And would you do me a favor? Would you go on and do a social post? See, what happens is when we don't work together, then we don't see anything change. And we saw that with COVID when they tried to stop this church and we stayed open. And we have to get a voice, guys. I'm going to just be the little preacher to you right now, but we have to do something together. So if all of you would get the book, get a picture, post it, and let's make a difference. But I have the opportunity of working with Laura on the clothing line. Plug, go out and get some LT wear. But I'll never forget the day that I've received a phone call from Clay Clark, and he said, hey, you do clothes, right? And I said, what do you mean? He goes, like you have clothing lines? And I said, yeah. I said, well, Laura Trump would like to do a clothing line. And I'm like the president's daughter-in-law? Yeah, you might be receiving a phone call. 5 minutes later, Laura called me. And first of all, there was that shock and awe. And then there was the responsibility. See, every one of us have a responsibility in business. And it was an opportunity for me to work with Laura. And so first of all, I love your wife dearly. Your children, I kind of become a prayer warrior, just to be honest, for them every day. I pray for the 4 of you. But I want to ask you this. On the way over, I had 5 minutes with Eric, and I said, Eric, pour into me what I need to know to take this company to the next level. So what I like to say is smart people put smarter people around them. So make sure you're putting smart people around you. But I guess for me, the whole thing Under Siege, where do you see the church going? Because a lot of people here are people of faith. Because we're still under siege. It's from the enemy. We know that. But from your perspective, I know how I see it. From your perspective, what can we do different? Because we are under siege, especially in California. We know that. I'd love to hear from you on that.
So I'm going to say something that's a little bit controversial. And by the way, with Tammy, if we're to do a vote who Tammy's favorite Trump is, it's definitely Laura, which really breaks my heart. So very disappointed in you, Tammy. Who? Barron. No, Tammy definitely likes me more than Barron, I think. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. Hey, you've never met Barron, have you? Have you? Oh, at the inauguration, of course. Yeah. So, I don't know. Maybe it's Laura, then Barron, then me. That could be possible. I think in terms of faith, I do think we have a revival in this country. I think you had real problems under Obama, where you had the weaponization of the IRS, you had the tax status, and you had pastors that were just petrified to say anything, to preach, to do anything. You had pastors that were petrified because of kind of the war on religion. Recently, you've had a different thing. You've kind of what I call the Charlie Kirk effect, where churches are full because of what they tried to do. They turned somebody into a martyr. Evil, pure evil. The very people that call us fascist, dress up in all black, grab a sniper rifle, sit on the roof of a college campus and shoot over the heads of college kids that are engaged in political free speech and debate, and they call us fascists. It's really interesting. And, I think a lot of this evilness is showing its way through, and I think you've got this pendulum that's swinging back from the corrupt to the pure. And I really hope that continues. I think Charlie was a big aspect of that. I think my father was a big aspect of that. I think kind of the American First policies are really, a big aspect of that. Where I think I need to be critical of organized religion. I hate to say this. This has nothing to do with God. This has nothing to do with the Bible. But I do think that there were a lot of pastors who were weak-kneed in times when we needed them to be strong. And I think there were a lot of people who weren't pastors who were strong. And when I see these two, Phil and Tammy, they were the only people. They were one of the few people in California that kept their churches open. In a time when Gavin Newsom was telling everybody to shut down the church. And they're saying, wait a second. You've got pot stores that are open. You've got alcohol stores that are open. But yet you can't keep a church open. You can't keep a house of worship open. I think not. Try and shut me down. I dare you. Arrest me. Try and shut me down. And that's not easy. That's not easy. The amount of social pressure, that fell on these guys wasn't easy, but they didn't buckle, right? And they didn't cower and they didn't break. And guys, I can tell you, a lot of pastors broke, and kind of shame on them for doing it. And so I think if there's one thing that I would hope and pray for, it's that we all find our respective backbones. I mean, we would not be where we are as a company right now, or country right now, if we would have broken. The easiest deal that I could have ever made in my life was getting my father out of all the mess that they tried to put him in, all the weaponization, the indictments. I could have gone behind the scenes to each and every one of them and said, listen, he's going to back out of this race. He's going to retreat peacefully. He's going to throw in the towel. He'll do so to save face, but he's going to back out of this, and you drop everything. They would have shook on that deal like that. It would have been the easiest deal. And honestly, 91 indictments later, he's still out there every single day in the halls of the courthouses swinging. And guys, our religious leaders better be the same way, and they haven't been. And they haven't been. And this isn't just in America. This is around the world. And there are certain sects of them that have been unrelenting. But people need to stand up, and people need to fight, and people need to, to stick to their guns, and people need to, not cower. And we just haven't had enough. And so that's what I pray for within the faith-based community.
Now, Eric, we have time for about three more rapid-fire questions. So I'll ask a question, and Phil and Tammy, we're going to do a group photo. We're going to do a group photo. So if you want to get in the photo, psychologically, physically prepare yourself to be within the photo range. Andrew, grab the camera, grab the lens. Jackie, grab Andrew. Everybody grab Andrew. If you're Andrew, grab yourself. Get ready for the photo. We'll be doing that. But I have a question for you. Sean, will you pull up the photo real quick here? The Clark kids on the screen here. Here you go, Eric. Right here on the screen in front of us. There we go. Sorry, Eric, the other way. We're going this way. Right here. There we go. Yeah. So this is our family. And Eric has lowered his standards, and he's invited the Clark kids to visit Mar-a-Lago here in February. So the kids are excited. But I've got 4 daughters. So it's my daughter to the right, Angelina, then my son, Aubrey, then you got Havana. And then we're hanging out with Dr. Navarro. He's a good buddy of mine. And that's Scarlett and Leia, and then my wife. And they're asking me, Dad, what should we wear? What should we wear? With their women, a lot of estrogen. I'm going, I don't know. But I'm going to tell you what, I'm going to take at least 10 minutes of this event and ask Eric. Because Eric, what's allowed to wear? What can the girls wear? What is acceptable at Mar-a-Lago? It's a club. You've lowered your standards for a couple days to allow me to sneak in. My great family, they'll be there. What should they wear? What can the girls not wear, Eric?
But by the way, I always say how Clay landed his wife is nothing short of exceptional to me. It's unbelievable. It's like, but I've actually never seen Clay. He's actually got a more restricted dress code than even Donald Trump, because at least Donald Trump will get into golf clothing. Does that make sense? It's either a suit or golf clothing. I've actually never seen Clay Clark out of a suit and sneakers, right? Like that's like the Clay Clark wardrobe. And so people make fun of me for having a wardrobe because it's either a suit or like shorts and a polo. But Clay Clark is always in a suit. So Clay, you just wear your suit. We will embrace you for the good friend that you are. Your wife and daughters have tremendous class.
Okay.
And so I'm not worried about them, but you are going to fit in beautifully, and you're going to have the time of your life.
Now, Scarlett, this one here, the one in the back, the tall one there next to Dr. Navarro, she's really concerned about what to wear. Anything in particular she can't wear,
Nothing.
Okay, we're good. We're good. Okay, so that's good. Now we've got
maybe that's one thing that she can't wear is nothing. But yeah, but
we're a lot of things.
You've got incredibly great kids and they're beautiful, and
Okay.
I have no doubt that they're gonna nail this one.
Okay, I've asked. Okay, so I'm gonna pass the mic over here to Tammy.
Oh gosh, I get another question. All right, here. Out of all the line of the LT brand, which we have a No Days Off, we have American Made. I mean, your wife is so stinking sexy, and if you don't follow Laura Trump online, you've got to. Which is your favorite piece we've created?
Yeah, well, the No Days Off thing is pretty amazing, to say the least, because that's literally like her life. It's probably all of our lives, but it's really, really her life, right? This is somebody who'll wake up, if she's traveling at 6 o'clock to go somewhere for Fox, she'll get to the gym at 3:45 a.m. I mean, she's just one of these people, like she doesn't miss a workout, and she'll be the first one up, and then she will sprint back to take the kid to their soccer game, to pick the kids up at school. I mean, she's like Wonder Woman, and so, a lot of people fake these kind of mottos in life. You see so many mottos that aren't. She is literally that person. She is the No Days Off person. And so I think that perfectly encapsulates her. There we go, No Days Off. By the way, you don't get biceps like that by, going to the gym once every 3 weeks. So she works hard for this.
All right, Pastor Phil, what question do you have? Then I'll have one final question for Eric.
One final question. The greatest opportunity for financial gain in this world today is what?
Yeah. So we were talking about this a little while ago, and I really believe energy, right? Energy, I believe in cryptocurrency with every aspect of my heart and soul. There's a small group we were talking at these guys' house before, but listen, pretty much everything in the world is going to be correlated to energy. Obviously AI is going to be correlated to energy. AI is going to be a long race, and there's going to be a lot of different concepts that work their way through. At the end of the day, none of them can succeed without massive amounts of energy. Cryptocurrency is going to be the way that our financial systems run. There's no question about it. It's going to be how money moves around the world, not the SWIFT system, not the antiquated system. It's going to be through cryptocurrency. Guess what? That's all going to be based in energy. I was mentioning to a group before, if you track GDP growth of any country, the countries with the highest GDP growth are the countries that have, the lowest nominal energy costs. So if we want to be the number one superpower in the world, guess what you need? You need cheap energy. And America is sitting on the best energy reserves anywhere in the world, and we're also sitting on the brightest minds anywhere in the world, which can create other forms of energy, and we're doing that every single day. So our oil and gas reserves are second to none. China would absolutely kill for our energy reserves. They do everything to make sure that we don't use them. I mean, they're the biggest part of the lobby that helps lobby against using our clean, natural gas and oil and every other form of energy. They would die to have what we have, and yet, we don't exploit it fully until my father came along. I mean, we were, energy independent, and we were exporting energy the first term. Then in the 4 years, what was Biden's first executive order? Shutting down every pipeline, including the Keystone XL pipeline. All of a sudden, gas prices shot up. And I'm so sorry to people in California, because you dealt with, by far, the highest energy costs in this country, by a lot. And then guess what? We're back to energy independent again. We're exporting energy again, as opposed to buying energy from Russia so they can fuel wars and death and destruction of young people, or Venezuela so they can fuel narco-terrorists, bringing drugs into the United States and everything else. So, energy is kind of 1, 2, and 3. And, you have these SMRs, you've got fusion, you've got fission, you've got, the nuclear reactors. You've got so many really cool technologies that are, that are right there, that are within 5 years. I mean, think about having something the size of the stage that can light up an entire county using, fission energy that can't melt down, that's not susceptible to kind of 3 Mile Island stuff, right? Because just the technology is so much more advanced, it's so much better. You don't have transmission for hundreds and hundreds of miles. And guess what that does? That further fuels AI growth, it further fuels technology, it fuels robotics, it fuels space travel, it fuels efficient cars. There's so much that could be done with, and it certainly fuels crypto. I think my single biggest bet would be kind of, the advent of modern day energy, because listen, as a country that has the lowest cost energy in the world, America can never be beaten, because honestly, the entrepreneurs in this country are by far the best in the world, hands down, not even close. It's why we're 340 million people with a $33 trillion economy. And China is what, 1.6 billion now? At $22.5 trillion. So we're beating by them by roughly a third with a sixth less people. Guys, we're winning. We're winning so long as government can stay the hell out of the way. And so long as we have priorities intact, i.e. energy, which allows us to do everything better, faster, cheaper, more efficiently. And so, my biggest bet would be energy.
One final question, then Sean, I'm going to have you help us move some podiums around here. One final question for you while Sean's getting ready for the group photo here. As it relates to shalom and business, the concept, it's a Hebrew concept of a win-win. It's a win-win. You and I have done 25 plus events together, and it's always been a win-win. It's a thing where the audience wins. Hopefully you don't leave and go, that Clay Clark is an odd guy. But it's a win-win where I have a great time. Hopefully you guys have a great time. Hopefully you do as well. Can you talk about the business owners out there that maybe are a little bit concerned about their pricing? That I'm a doctor, I'm a dentist, I'm a lawyer, I'm a pest control company, and I'm worried about paying myself first, charging what I'm worth, charging the right prices. I see so many wonderful, humble people afraid to charge what they're worth. Could you just talk about the win-win nature of business, of just making it a win for you, for them, for the customer, for the employees? Just kind of get your philosophy on that.
Well, first of all, just let me say something about Clay. I'm not actually sure if Clay, ever went into this with a win-win philosophy, and you'll understand what I'm saying. He put himself out there during the campaign in ways that very few people ever did, and he did it in a way that sacrificed much more of him than he ever got back, right? And I think that's a testament to him and his entire family. Right? There's so many people who would come and they would show up at every single campaign event, and they were there for the picture line, but they didn't do a damn thing. This guy never came for the picture line. You know what he did? He went to Oregon and he put his own money into having events and popping up tents and dealing with cancellation after cancellation and airplane tickets and coordination of speakers and guests and this and that. And the amount of adversity that this guy ran into because he wanted to save this country and he wanted to spread a message. I mean, it cost him years of his life and probably many millions of dollars doing what he did, but he did it because of the United States of America and his love for this country and his love for faith in God. And so I'd actually say that was one situation where it wasn't a win-win. Maybe it's a win-win now, right? Because we ultimately achieved the objective that we cared about, which was saving this nation. But man, there was a lot of sacrifice that went into what he did. I think in business, it has to be a win-win. If it's not a win-win, you know what it turns into? It turns into lawsuits. I mean, it's just that simple, right? If you boil it down, if it's not a win-win relationship, somebody wins, somebody loses, an adversarial relationship is formed, and everything implodes. People have to win, all sides of it have to win. And by the way, generally the best relationships are the ones that you have the most fun with. If that makes sense. It's like those are the ones that are the best, the ones where everybody wins, but you can also have a smile, you can laugh, you can enjoy the company you're around. Those are the ones that are truly rewarding, and those are the ones that are truly fulfilling. And so, that's the concept. That is the concept. Build a great company. Have a lot of fun doing it. Surround yourself with incredible people. Make sure those people succeed. Make sure you succeed. And then in terms of the actual pricing, don't bottom fish, guys. Don't bottom fish. It's something that we learned a long time ago. And so oftentimes people are, I want to do things for the cheapest, and I'm gonna take the cheapest bid. Be careful doing that, right? It's always, the cheapest bids are the ones that cost you by far the most. They're the ones that are gonna cause the most problems. They're the ones that are gonna be the biggest headache. They're the ones that are gonna cause the most issues. They're the ones that are gonna whine and complain by far the most. I had a hotel. We still have the hotel. I won't mention which one it was, but hot climate during this. I'll actually mention it's Doral in Miami, and during the summer, right? And not many people go to Florida in the middle of August. It's not exactly like the time to travel to, and so during the summer we'd always do this $200 rate, and most of our hotels are thousands of dollars, right? We're really kind of playing with the high end of the market, and it's really one day I'm sitting there and I see every single review that's written about the company, about all our properties. I adamantly read them, all the 5-star reviews. And all the 1 and 2 star reviews, and we get very few of them. But it's funny, I'd see a 2-star review come through. August from Doral. I didn't get my 7th bottle of free Trump water, and I'm sitting there saying, you gotta be kidding me. And I finally looked at my team one day and I said, guys, no bottom fishing. I'm just done. I'm done bottom fishing. I've never once gotten a bad review during the peak of season when you have normal rates. But yet all of a sudden August rolls around, and that's when I see these reviews come through. I only had 2 bedside chocolates and I expected 4. And I'm like, I can't believe this person's writing this review. And so I really do believe in, obviously win-win, but have respect for the value put out, have respect for the product that you offer, have respect for the company, you've created, and there's a point where you do not want to bottom fish. Just don't go there. Allow somebody else to go there. Allow somebody else to have those headaches. Stay one rung above that, and I promise you're going to do substantially better.
Amen to that. Well, folks, let's hear for Eric Trump, everybody. Let's hear for Eric Trump. Yes.
Thrivetime show, that's where you wanna be.
That's where you want to be.
Thrivetime show, that's where you wanna be. Yeah. Business growth is what you wanna see.
What you want to see.
Thrivetime show, that's where you wanna be. Where you wanna be, yeah. If you got the big goals to achieve, you got to achieve it.
For entrepreneurs, it's a paradise. For employees, it's a change paradigm. For the poor and ignored, it's a change mind. For the explorers, it's a major find. For Tim Tebow, it's goals aligned. For the Eric to the Trump, it's a mastermind. For Robert Kiyosaki, it's game time. For the first time attendees, it's oh my. For the Oklahomies, it's a sweet home of mine. For the real business people, it's so nice. For the people going places, it's a green light. For you and your crew, it's a change vibe. For this rendezvous, you can name your prize. For the VIP, ticks 105 times. For me, it's what I do, it's my vibe. Because the Thrivetime Nation is my tribe.
My tribe. Thrivetime show, that's where you wanna be. Yeah. Business growth is what you wanna see.
What you wanna see.
Thrivetime show, that's where you wanna be. Where you wanna be, yeah. If you got the big goals to achieve, you got to achieve it. It's time to thrive, what a time to be alive. Breath in my lungs, thank you Jesus Christ. You got a chance to cause change upon the land. So beat that clock by your diligence. It's up to you, do you prefer to keep making the wrong turns, or to turn it all around after you take the time to learn? Without vision the people perish, lack wisdom you get embarrassed. Or be humble, grow 1,000-fold, reap a harvest and share it.
Can we kick it?
Yes, we can.
If you come with business problems, you leave with plans. At the Thrivetime Show, we make wealth expand. And we're focused on implementation. We teach marketing and improving your brand. How to build the systems and finance. We teach how to hire people and manage them. How to bring your dreams into reality. Since 05, I've been doing it, cause that's my jam. Helping goal pursuers do it, putting cash in their hands. Now that Eric Trump has joined us, he has joined the band. Kiyosaki's coming tall cause he's in the rhythm. But can he kick it? Yes, he can. Kiyosaki's in the dojo of self-discipline. So get your tickets now at Thrivetime Show and I'd buy them now while they're still on hand.
Thrivetime Show, that's where you wanna be. Yeah. Business growth is what you wanna see. What you wanna see. Thrivetime Show, that's where you wanna be. Where you wanna be, yeah. If you got the big goals to achieve, you got to achieve it. Thrivetime Show, that's where you wanna be. Yeah. Business growth is what you wanna see. What you wanna see. Thrivetime Show, that's where you wanna be. Where you wanna be, yeah. If you got the big goals to achieve, you got to achieve it.